Brilliant. Thanks, Pete. And yes, it's 5 minutes in a room in a chat room with you, and it's impossible not to be your mate. You bring such energy to what goes on, and I think outside ideas and networking in is all a reflection of big chunk of what we're going to talk about today. So you're living proof that it works, my friend. Let me quickly share my screen. Hopefully people can see me. Where have you all gone?
There we go. We got it, mate. We got it.
You got it. You got it. Fantastic. I want to talk today about joy and emotion. And over the last 50 years, I think since Milton Friedman talked about shareholder primacy and the fact that the point of a business is just to make profits and everything else be damned, we've gone into this professional mode where work is professional and we leave emotions at home. And we leave, it's all about process and humanity be damned. And we leave all that at home. And we've kind of leached the emotion out of business. But essentially, you failed to see something super, super important. And that is essentially, business is nothing more than relationships with purpose. In fact, life is nothing more than relationships with purpose. My birthday's on Sunday, and I've done 50 trips around the sun. And in that half a century, I've learned a thing or two about life. Not much, but a tiny few things about life. And one of the key things I have kind of figured out is that it's about people and it's about the relationships between people. Pretty much everything else is gravy. Pretty much everything else is just add-ons and process and the way we do stuff. But the heart and soul of everything is about people and the relationships between those people. And to me, if we are going to build businesses that actually have an impact, businesses that change the world, businesses that create a better world, we need to start putting the emotion back into business. And we need to start thinking about business in terms of emotion. And imagine if everybody in your organization turned up to work excited and energized and full of life and bringing their A game and solving problems and hitting deadlines. How would that transform your business? And I know some of you are sole traders and you're one-man entrepreneur machines, but imagine your suppliers bringing all that and the people you work with and your associates all turning up, bringing 100%. And they go home at the end of the day fulfilled. How would that transform your business? And not only that, it would transform the mood of the nation. Parenting would improve. Marriages would improve. The health of the nation would improve. If we start to deliver this in business, if we start to put the emotion back in and we realize that it's nothing more than people and people in relationships, then actually we can start to actually see transformation in business and transformation in capitalism and how we build societies. Let me give you a few examples. There's a crazy Australian dentist called Paddy Lunn. Some of you may have heard of him.
Yes, legend.
He a fair while ago, he was running his own dental practice. He was working 80 to 100 hours a week and he was hating every minute of it. And over many, many years, he just got worse and worse. And he came to the point where he had a mental breakdown. And he locked his door and he took down his signs and he stopped advertising his business and he cut up his reception desk with a chainsaw. And he refused to take any new customers and he fired half his customers and he only kept the ones that actually paid on time and he enjoyed working with. And he set up in his business what he called a courtesy system. And he redesigned the culture around how do we treat each other in this business? How do we treat each other in terms of the people that work here? And how do we treat each other in terms of our customers? And he defined a new culture. And he only takes clients now from referrals and he works about 25 hours a week and he earns 2.5 times as much in revenue. Because the irony is, when we get this right and we put emotion back in business, revenue goes up as well. So even if you are a Milton Friedman, die-hard, hate people capitalist, you do this, you make more money. So it's worth doing even if you're a die-hard capitalist. But let me give you another example. There's a an IT service company based out in India called Wipro. And they operate call centers, and they operate server farms. They operate all sorts of things like that. But they had a real problem in their call centers with the turnover of their staff. Essentially, year on year, they would literally lose 50% of their staff in turnover. Now, I know call centers are high turnover anyway, but even 50% was stretching it for call centers. So they got in some behavioral scientists to do some research. And their intent was to research what was going on. But in doing that, they discovered a really, really interesting principle. They did this little experiment. One year, they took in 250 roughly new recruits into the call center, and they split them into 3 groups. They had a control group that were onboarded in the same way they normally onboard staff. Welcome to the company. This is your job. This is your desk. Off you go. And they had a second control group where they onboarded them in exactly the same way, except they got an extra hour and a half, all about the impact the company has, the impact that the company makes in India, in the workplace and society. Talk about all the great stuff they did. And then they got a hoodie at the end of the day with the company logo on. And they went off and started work. And the third group they took, they gave them the same onboarding, but they got an extra hour and a half, where they talked about the impact that person wanted to have in the organization, their place in the work that they were going to do. And at the end, they got a hoodie with the company logo and their name on. Just slight, simple changes. And they came back 9 months, a year later, just to see how these 3 groups had performed. And that final group, where they talked about them and their place in the company, and they gave them a hoodie with their name on, were 200 times more likely to still be at the company than the control group. Because they put emotion back in. They'd realized it was relationships with purpose, and they talked about that relationship. Or I'll give you one final example. There's a company I worked with in London, a recruitment company. They came to me and said, look, we've got 2 founders, and we're out of town quite a lot doing business development. We're in Europe, we're in the Middle East, we're in America, trying to do business development. But when we're away, everything just gets a bit lax in the office. We need to figure out how we can control this more so that productivity remains higher when we're not here. And we sat down and we chatted for about an hour and a half. And I said to them, right, what you need to do is you need to put in unlimited holidays and fully flexible working. And they looked at me a bit strange, and they said, that's literally the opposite of what we've asked you to do. So I said to them, look, try it. And if at any point you think this is not going right, just stop doing it. But give it a try. And I phoned them up at the end of the month, the end of the first month, and said, how's it going? Have you stopped doing it? Did it work? And they said, well, it hasn't had the detrimental impact we were expecting. There's been some interesting numbers, but we're going to keep doing it for a little while longer. At the end of 3 months, I came back to them and said, right, give me some numbers. What's the situation? And they said to me, we've had the best 3 months in terms of revenue that the company has ever had in the 6-year history. Productivity's gone up 40%. Staff turnover has gone down to 0. Nobody has left in this time, despite one person handing in their notice almost every month since the inception of the company. And the real weird thing is the amount of holiday taken is exactly the same as the amount of holiday taken at the same time in the previous year. So productivity's gone up 40%, and it's cost us nothing. And we can't work out what's going on. So we did a little bit more research and interviewed some of the people involved. It turns out that when you treat people like adults, they behave like adults. So when they were sat at their desk, it was a choice. So they did their best work. They were engaged because they wanted to be there. And it had a huge impact when we put emotion back in and we realized that this is about relationships. It's not just about resources. And Pete, you said earlier, you've always wanted to be self-made. And I'm gonna challenge that, because I don't think any of us are self-made, because there's all the people around us who support us and help us build our business. And it's really important that we understand that it is relationships with purpose. Let me quickly explain the science behind before we get on to the how-to. I promised I'd give you the science, but the science goes like this. There's a guy called Pete Skillman who's been studying teams and effectiveness of teams and how teams perform at their highest level. And he did a little experiment. He's done it hundreds and thousands of times across the world in different geographical cultures, with different groups. And he's done this experiment with groups of CEOs, groups of leaders, groups of business students, all sorts of groups. And the experiment he's done, he's given them 20 minutes to perform a simple task. He gives them some sellotape, some string, he gives them some spaghetti, and he gives them a marshmallow. And their job in 20 minutes is to build the tallest tower they can and put a marshmallow on the top. And at the end of the 20 minutes, you measure the tower. The people with the tallest tower essentially are the winners. And without fail, one group outperformed all the others. And that they outperformed CEOs by about 60%. They outperformed business students by about 150%. They outperformed lawyers by about 60 to 70% in terms of the height of their towers. And they looked at this and they went, why on earth are kids able to do something that's quite a technical task better than all these other people? And it comes down to something that a guy called Alex Pentland from MIT's Human Dynamics Lab discovered. And this is, teams perform better when they stop worrying about stuff that doesn't matter. That's simple. Simply when teams belong. And what this means is, you know that little voice in your head, the one that wherever you go, they're like, are you really good enough? Everybody knows you're not very good. Everybody understands you can't really do this and you're an imposter. Everybody's looking at you. When you do this, everybody's going to say this and they're not going to like you. All that little voice in the back of your head that's constantly worrying about stuff. If we could silence that voice for a day, how much more would you get done? What sort of things would you do? If we could silence that voice for a week or a year, what would you actually go and do? What would you achieve? Now, that voice is really, really important because it keeps us alive. It's there looking for danger, going, is this safe? But at the moment, when we're in business, it starts looking at all the weird stuff. That boss over there looks really scary. Or that person that's been here a long time, they might tell me off. Whatever it might be. And if we can silence it, actually, it allows us to perform. And in the case of these kids, they don't care about group dynamics. They've got marshmallow, they've got sellotape, they've got spaghetti. Let's just get it done. Let's have a great time. Whereas all the other groups are sitting there going, well, who's in charge? Am I in charge? If I take charge, what will that make me? And the whole point of designing your business around the emotions and everybody understanding the rules of the game is that it allows that voice to be silenced. I don't need to worry about what the rules of the game are. I don't need to worry about if I do this, am I going to be in trouble? Because I know everybody's really clear on what the culture is, what behaviors are acceptable, what the lines we can and can't cross are. And that allows us to put the emotion back into business. I can now perform and I can bring my whole self to work without worrying. And I can make mistakes. And I know that if I do, there's a process. And all that is built into when we build culture. And we're talking about allowing the good emotion and putting aside the bad emotion. You know, we all come to work and we all have bad days, and allowing us to have that, but not worry about it, not let it impact our work, but actually being able to create a space where we can inspire the good emotions. I'll give you another quick example. I have recently had a restaurant come to us talking about, we can't seem to get enough wait staff. And I'm like, well, you got to stop asking for wait staff in your adverts. You don't want wait staff. And they're like, I'm pretty sure we do. There's a lot of plates and tables that we need to. So you don't want wait staff. What you want is you want people who want to help families make memories that they'll talk about in 20 years. You want people that want to come to work and create a place where the couples have the night of their life that they'll never forget. Yes, they need to bus plates and they need to deliver drinks, but that's not what this business is about. We need to put that emotion back in, and we need to define it in a way that those people can then come to work, bring their whole self. And that's what happened at the recruitment company I worked at. That's what happened with Paddy Lund when he put the emotion back in his business. And the great thing is, as I said, revenue goes up as well. So how do we do this? Quick whistle-stop tour about how to do this. This is what I call the culture canvas. And this breaks down into 4 things. I'm going to quickly run through each of these 4 things. The cause. What the hell is it you do? What's the impact your organization is having? Why do you exist? And it's not about making money. Making money is like oxygen. Yes, we need to breathe to live, but that's not why we live. It's the same for business. We need money to exist as a business. Yes, you have to make money because that's how we keep things going. That's how we become sustainable. That's not the reason we exist. We exist to add value, to affect change, to deliver impact, whatever it might be. Then we've got the players. Now, who have you got on board? And what are the relationships between them? How have you hired them? Who are the leaders? We've got the words, your internal comms, your marketing, the language you use. All that is really important. And then we've got the actions, the processes, the metrics, the rewards. And I'm going to quickly cover each of these. The cause is about freedom and not control. How do we create a space where your people can come to work? They understand what you're trying to do and they understand the rules of the game so that they know how to deliver what you're trying to deliver without you having to put reams of framework in and control everything. And when something goes wrong, you've got to put another control in, another process to stop it going wrong. Actually, we want to create freedom. So, for example, the culture guy, the work that I do is all about how do we create workspaces where people thrive, where people can love life and enjoy their work. How do we create those workspaces? And the rules of the game are very, very simple. There are 4 rules to the game in terms of the work that I do. One is do better. Whatever we do, it has to improve life for people. 2, be ninja. Whatever we do more than people expect. So they always come back to you and go, I didn't know you did that. That's brilliant. Thank you. Rule 3 is people can do amazing things. So we are cheerleaders and not critics. So whenever we talk to people, we're trying to find the thing to cheer them on, not criticize. And that doesn't mean we don't challenge them in some cases, but that's rule number 3. And rule number 4 is everybody makes tea. And the reason we have rule number 4 is because we essentially don't want people who have got an ego. So if you're too stuck up to make a cup of tea, you probably don't belong in this organization. Those are the 4 rules. How people contextualize that in their space and how they do the work, that's down to them and the space they're operating in. But that is what makes this business work. The fact that we are here to transform workplaces and we do it in a way that's people-centric. Go and figure out how to do that. That's how we create that. I'll give you another one. Ritz-Carlton. Their purpose and their mission is ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. That's it. And everybody has at least $2,000 per guest stay to solve problems. They don't have to ask anybody. If there's a problem, you've got money to solve it because they trust their people to deliver what they're asking them to deliver. Which brings me to the second part, which is the players. Ooh, let's go back one. We go back to the players here. No, we're not. We're going forward still. Come on. Back we go. We'll get there in a minute. The players, that's the people you've got on board. And it's not necessarily about, people that fit. It's more about people that contribute to the culture. Pete said earlier, have you got the right people on the bus? Jim Collins, from good to great. That's what it's talking about. But it's people that actively contribute to the culture, not people that, I'm all right, I can put up with those values. But when you talk to them about who you are, they go, that's amazing. You know what we could do? And they bring their own color and life to it, and they contextualize it in a way that you hadn't seen. Those are the people you want on board because they bring an energy to things that other people don't get. Zappos shoes. Don't know whether you've heard of Zappos shoes. They're bought by Amazon about 5 or 6 years ago. But they are a customer-centric online shoe retailer. And on their onboarding process, they have 4 weeks of onboarding with any new staff that come into the company. At the end of week 2, they offer them £2,000 to leave the company because they only want people that are there to do the job, that are excited about what they want to do. So you've got to get the right people on board. Then we've got to get the words. One of the questions Pete asked before we went into the group was, if I cut your business in half, what words would fall out? And this is what I call the stick of rock principle. If we get this right, if the way we talk about our business and our marketing and our internal comms and the language we use reinforces that purpose, that cause, then wherever I cut your company, I'm going to feel and see the same thing. Like a British seaside stick of rock. Wherever you snap it, it says the name of the town. And that's what we want when we start to deliver the words. And the last part is about actions. Your metrics and your rewards, your policies, your processes, your environment all have to reinforce and reflect the cause. What is it you want, and how are we going to go about business? Quick example, Facebook offices, they never paint the walls. They've always got breeze blocks on the walls of the Facebook offices because their whole focus is our product is never finished. We are always improving the product. So there's a visual cue there of the environment and what the company is all about. Things like that. So the actions, the metrics and the rewards have all got to line up and reinforce that purpose and that value. And when you do that, people can come to work and they can bring their whole self and they can contribute to the culture and they can bring energy and life. And this is where the rubber hits the road, which brings me to the little red ring around the outside of the culture canvas, which is about elevate and differentiate. This is where we take our values and we push them to the nth degree. We go, this is what we stand for. So for the culture guys value about people can do incredible things. We're cheerleaders, not critics. Every interaction I have with someone, or any of my team have with someone online or in person, we want them to go away with a big smile on their face, excited about what happens next. And we engineer that by doing research on who we're talking to and what's important to them and figuring out those conversations that we need to have. And we engineer that so that everybody goes away with a big smile on their face, excited about what comes next. We push it to the nth degree. And we do things for free. Now, we continually look at, well, what can we add here that's going to improve something for the customer? So I'm doing some training in London for a hotel, and we're doing leadership training. And I've booked in 2 or 3 sessions with their staff just to do coaching. Nothing to do with, nobody's paying me for it. The leadership aren't doing it. I'm going down there and I'm going, right, these 3 people have asked me some questions. I'm going to put in an hour with each of them. So next time I go down there, I'll do some leadership training in the morning and I'll sit down in the afternoon and we'll help them. It's all part of the process. It's all about adding and pushing those values to the nth degree, about being ninja and doing more. And that's what elevate and differentiate is. So there you go. That is the culture canvas in a whistle-stop tour. The cause, the players, the words, and the actions. And it's all about building something where people come to work bringing their whole self. They're excited. The emotion is put back. I want to be part of your organization. And when we do this right, we have people begging to work for us. And we have customers that can't help but talk about us to everybody else around them because they're so excited about working with us. That's what is going to actually have an impact and change the world if we get this right. We need businesses that put joy and emotion back in, because that's going to be the future. It's going to save capitalism, in my opinion. So that's all I've got. There is a QR code there that you can download the slides. You can download a copy of the culture canvas. There's other resources on that page as well.